got it? You got it? Okay, cool.
Don't you miss me. You say the whereas, or we just go right to the text?
Extra agenda?
One, well, one whereas.
Oh, mine does not have the whereas highlighted. I might ad-lib that.
If you don't have one,
Yes,
for it,
ad
that's
lib.
fine. I've got
Well,
electronic
split.
here.
Depends on what it is.
Okay.
Everybody good? Is that a new part of the tradition now?
No.
Oh,
it's just,
okay.
I like Mark.
Something tells me that we'll probably have that next time.
Katie and I had to.
Yeah. Good evening. I will now call to order regular scheduled Apex Town Council meeting for Tuesday, September 27, 2022. And we thank you for being here this evening. And to those that have joined us on live stream, welcome. We'll go ahead and get started with our invocation. And as faith continues to be a tradition that provides hope, love, unity, and goodwill, we recognize diversity and inclusion in our efforts, understanding we don't practice the same faith traditions, but you're welcome to have a private moment of silence at this time. So what I thought we would do tonight is we're all looking for peace. And so let's have a peaceful moment. Let's take a moment of silence together. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for that. All right, I want to announce a couple of changes to the agenda. Under presentations, we're adding a proclamation, Hispanic Heritage Month. And then the second thing is accept the applicant's request to continue rezoning case number 21CZ17, which is the 1010 Business Park, to the November 8, 2022 regular council meeting. So I would like to go ahead and set the motion, have a motion to set the regular meeting agenda at this time with those changes.
So moved.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
I second it.
Second, Councilwoman Stallings. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We move now to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
All right,
Second?
all right, have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We move now to presentations. And we have our three proclamations tonight. Indigenous Peoples Day will be our first proclamation. And Taylor Ray, Special Events Coordinator, Department of Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources, if you would come up after we read the proclamation. And we're going to share a reading tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, if you could start us off.
So the proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas the town of Apex, North Carolina recognizes that the indigenous people of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since long before European settlers. And whereas the town of Apex promotes equality of opportunity consistent with the U.S. Declaration of Independence for all people, including those who descend from the indigenous peoples, and desires to uphold policies and practices that ensure equal access to opportunity and their rights to pursue life, liberty, and happiness in America. And
Now therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of the town of Apex, do hereby proclaim the 10th day of October 22 as Indigenous Peoples Day in Apex and call upon all residents to observe this day with appropriate ceremonies and activities. Signed this 27th day of September 2022. So if Ms. Ray can come up, please.
Mr. Freeman.
Thank you very much.
Hindu Heritage.
All right, our next proclamation tonight is the Hindu Heritage Month. Again, share a reading, and we're going to summarize the proclamation, and we'll let council,
I got this one.
sorry. Chairman Mahaffey, thank you.
Yes, sir. Hindu Heritage Month. The town of Apex and the nation have been influenced by the extraordinary cultural, ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity of its residents, and Hindu Americans now serve in various levels of government across the state and nation, including 3 members of the United States House of Representatives.
Now therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of the town of Apex, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Hindu Heritage Month of Apex, and call upon all residents to reflect on the significant contributions Hindu communities have made to shape our national life. Signed this 27th day of 2022 by yours truly. So if you would come up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Absolutely. So is there a few words you want to share? Okay, go for it, go for it.
So, good evening. My name is Proclamation. On behalf of the Hindu community in Apex, I sincerely want to thank Mayor Gilbert and the town council members to recognize Hindu Heritage Month for the month of October. There are thousands of Hindus in Apex, and we are happy to contribute to the prosperity and peace of the community and the United States. Hindus in the United States live by the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda. He was the speaker in the first religion conference that happened in 1893, and his philosophy was Vasudev Kutumbakam, that means entire world is my family, and that happened in Chicago in 1893, and we are happy to contribute to that tradition. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, all right? So you gotta do this, everybody gotta go down and give a fist bump to everybody.
There you go. What's up, guys? They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it.
Yes. You're so welcome. Thank you for
There you
being
go.
here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, man. Good seeing you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Oh, yeah.
Congratulations. What's up, man? Thank you. Congratulations.
Both. Yeah, we'll do both.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, final proclamation tonight is Hispanic Heritage Month.
That is me. 1 second. Okay, this is a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas Hispanic Heritage Month began as Hispanic Heritage Week, established by legislation sponsored by Representative Edward Roybal of Los Angeles, and was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968, and whereas throughout the year, and especially during Hispanic Heritage Month, Americans embrace, honor, and celebrate the Hispanic community and its traditions and contributions, and
Now therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of the town of Apex, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Apex, affirming the 2022 theme of Unidos. Is that right? All right. I'm not done yet. Inclusivity of our nation and calling upon all residents to celebrate this month through activities and programs that enlighten and inspire our understanding of the amazing heritage of our Hispanic families, neighbors, and friends. It's signed this 27th day, 2022 by yours truly. So, absolutely. And the rest of the family, please come up.
Come on.
yeah.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the day.
Next generation is your too.
Yeah, everything you do. So I will present this to you on behalf of the town of Apex.
life. Growing up in El Salvador, then relocating to San Francisco, coming to Durham for schooling, and then moving to Apex. People ask me about our community, and I have to always remind folks that with Hispanic, Latino families, it's a very diverse group from many countries, many traditions, many stories. Mine is only one, and there are many, and that diversity is what we live by as we make America our home. So it's good to celebrate this heritage, meaning that Hispanics represent 20% of the American population, and so our presence is felt in contributing many aspects of our communal life. So thank you to all. Thank you, Mayor.
And you appreciate you guys being here, so thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thanks for everything you do.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. All right, we move now to our time of public forum. This is opportunity for community members to speak, give suggestions, recommendations, or any concerns they want to present. 3 minutes. And we have first speaking tonight is, no surprise, Elizabeth Ray Stitt. Would please come up. Just get a hand clap, that's good.
Elizabeth Ray Stitt, 3113 Friendship Road, and just to let you guys know, I moved the timer so I could see it. Every other time I forget and it's down there and I can't see it, so I'm better prepared today. So Wednesday, September 21st, last week, Marty Stone, Mike Deaton, Matt Eccles had a meeting with the impacted neighbors on the Big Branch sewer line. And so there were 35 neighbors that showed up to that meeting, and then we had 2 neighborhood meetings on Sunday. Many of those individuals showed up at the neighborhood meetings, but in total we had a total of 45 individuals that showed up that were all pretty much in the same consensus. So what we did was we summarized the issues for you. So I'm not going to go through them because there's too many, but there's a page that in your handout, Issues for Friendship, primarily our community there. Then issues for the various owners along the sewer route, and as well as issues for the New Hill community. So clearly, to go through 3 pages of bullet points, I can't do in 3 minutes, and I'm happy to send this also digitally. But we feel like there's enough easements in our community that somehow, some way, together, we can move the sewer line off our properties where we don't have to lose another 14 acres of our combined properties. And so we're going to be, organizing and continuing the path that we need to with the various parties. Everybody is well aware of the current path is going to require condemnation. I've heard the council say, you guys don't want that. We don't want that either. And the only way to avoid that is if we find a better route than what is currently proposed. And then the last page here is just one of the handouts that we gave to the community so they would know how to reach out and understand what was going on. A lot of them do not want to drive in. I'm very proud that we have one that drove in today. But the meetings that we will continue to have out in the community, everybody is welcome. And, we just got to find a different way. Just working together has not been what has occurred thus far. The town has worked alone, consistently alone, and these are our properties. So read through these things, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll yield back 20 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stitt. Your feedback is always welcome. Thank you. All right, that will close public forum. We move now to public hearings. And we will go to public hearing number 2, rezoning case number 22 CZ 16-1039 Iron Gate Drive, presented tonight by Lawrence Starnemeyer.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, this is rezoning case 22CZ16 for 1039 Iron Gate Drive. The intent of this rezoning is to fix the front setback. So as we are going through the rezoning, you'll hear that more. The property is located in this area inside our corporate limits. The subject property is a total of 0.46 acres and is located on the south side of Iron Gate Drive and west of Tingen Road. The property contains an existing foundation for a single-family dwelling that does not meet the setbacks of the current zoning district. The dwelling has already been moved to the site, but is not yet on the permanent foundation. The foundation was poured without receiving building permits. A building permit was submitted in March, but not approved. Also, the rear of the site is vegetated. The property is currently zoned rural residential, and all the adjacent properties are zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to medium-density conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map identifies the subject property as medium-high density residential office employment. The proposed rezoning to medium-density conditional zoning is not consistent with that land use classification. If the property is rezoned as proposed, the 2045 land use map will automatically be amended to medium-density residential. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on June 23rd, and a copy of the neighborhood report is in your packet. A full list of the proposed uses and zoning conditions can be found on page 2 of the staff report. The applicant is proposing single-family and accessory apartment. The 3 proposed zoning conditions include, number 1, the minimum lot width shall be 90 feet. Number 2, the front setback shall be at least 25.5 feet. And number 3, no permitted encroachments within the required front setback shall be allowed with the exception of eaves. As mentioned, with the intent of this rezoning, it is to fix the front setback. Planning staff suggested the zoning conditions to address the concerns while keeping the property as consistent with the surrounding properties as possible. The rezoning was exempt from meeting with the EAB per UDO section 2.19A2. The proposed rezoning is under 1 acre and is proposed to resolve a nonconformity. A letter of impact from Wake County Public School Systems was not requested for this rezoning, as an increase in the number of homes allowed is not possible based on the proposed zoning conditions. The proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it resolves the nonconformity associated with the current placement of the foundation for the single-family dwelling. The existing foundation was poured in the front setback of the current zoning district, causing a compliance issue with UDO section 5.1.1, Table of Intensity and Dimensional Standards residential districts. The proposed rezoning conditions also ensure that the lot cannot be further subdivided so that it remains consistent with the lot sizes in the neighborhood. Planning Board heard this at their September 12th meeting and unanimously recommended approval with conditions offered by the applicant. Planning Board also provided a note that stormwater staff will need to go on site to review current stormwater issues in the right-of-way or ditch. Planning staff can recommend approval with conditions as offered by the applicant. I'm happy to answer questions as well as our applicant in the audience.
Thank you, Ms. Stogmeyer.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Stogmeyer?
Ms. Dahmer, I had one. What happens with the denial of this? What happens to the house and the property?
They would either have to take out the foundation that's been poured. They don't meet the variance hardships. So this is the easiest route for them to potentially take to get an approval.
Okay.
Other questions?
Can we, I watched the planning board meeting, a lot of discussion with the neighbors about, the ditch and the stormwater and the stop work order and all that stuff.
Yes, sir.
Could someone from staff, kind of update us on what's happened since then?
Sure. Planning staff actually talked with stormwater staff yesterday. And between today and tomorrow, they plan on going on site and working with the drainage. So that is the latest update I've received, and that was yesterday. And the applicant could probably provide more information as well.
Okay.
So I believe it's getting resolved, or at least in the process of it.
Can I follow up with that? So I also listened to Plan Board, and it seemed to me like, just from the aerial, some of the ditch was in the right-of-way, some of it was on the property. And the idea is, if it's on the right-of-way, that's easier for the town to come in and fix it, and if it's on the property, that's harder. So I was unsure whether it was going to get fixed legally or allowed to be because of that feature. I'm not sure if you have an update on that part at all or know anything about that.
I defer to Amanda, if that's okay.
So our understanding in talking with stormwater staff is that the ditch elevation was changed whenever the water line was installed, and so in the right of way, and that was likely contributing, that and the way the silt fence was installed was likely contributing to the drainage issues that the neighbors were experiencing. And so that's the work that staff is going to be out working on tomorrow, is correcting that ditch elevation to help convey the water through the ditch instead of it spilling out and onto the adjacent properties. So we're hopeful that this will improve, if not resolve, the issue. So we'll definitely make an improvement.
Okay, and that water line you're talking about is the one that we approved a few years ago with the grant?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you. Applicant wish to speak?
Thank you so much.
How you doing? I'm Aaron Robertson. I own the property. A little bit, I think I wrote everyone an email. I don't know if everybody got it. So pretty much I moved the house from an existing location. The house had to be off the property. I hired a contractor to do all my work. And with paper, long story short, the surveyor had the plot plan reversed. So the offset was 40 feet in the back and 25 in the front, when it's supposed to be 40 in the front and 25 in the back. And my contractor didn't catch the error either. And that being said, he went ahead and moved everything, poured the foundation, got a third party to do everything. And then about 2-3 days later, I think the permit came back being denied, and he vanished on me and left me in this situation. I'm willing to help out with the erosion, anything I can. I've talked with Ms. Green. I'm here to help, but I can't do anything because I have a no work order, stop work order on my house. I'd go today. I went out there today and I actually saw the town in there today fixing some of the ditch. So that has been addressed at the starting of it. It's been sitting there since March 1st. It's been financially draining. It's been mentally draining, very exhausting. My family, I'm just trying to get back in a home and have a place to call home. Hopefully this can work out and we can get this rezoned, and if not, I'll have to go with it from there. But that's any questions or anything?
Yeah, what happened with this contractor? He ghosted you?
Yeah.
Hope you haven't paid him.
I paid him some, yes. Yeah. That was in our contract. I pay him once the house gets there. I pay him a portion, and pretty much once this happened, he filed the permit in his name, and I actually just filed my permit today under my name, and he just pretty much said, yeah, I have nothing to do with this, and took off. So told me to deal with it, and the surveyors, they were in here last meeting, and ECLS, and they've actually been working with me. They didn't turn their back on me. They've helped me try to correct everything through the process, everything. They've been very helpful. Even though there was a mistake on their end, they stood tall and are standing here with me to help me through this process. So I have nothing to say bad about them, but the contractor, he will be in court. So.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Robertson? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll go ahead and open up public hearing for comment at this time, and I would like to call up Sharon Green. Always good to see you, Ms. Green.
To everybody. I've been in Apex all my life, 67 years. But anyway, I'm at 1037 Iron Gate Drive, and I've been there for 36 years. And when we met with the planning, we have no problem with where the house is. The problem is the drainage. We had a drainage issue from the road coming. Town of Apex jumped on it after, and also came down today to start digging. The second problem is the fact that the rain is coming from the house and through the gutters, and because his house sits higher, Mr. Robertson, mine is like this because there's a slope. Oh, okay. So it's in my yard, in the back of my yard, near my sewer. So whatever you all decide to do, we have no problem. We as neighbors said the house can sit there, as far as we're concerned. But I want the drainage because it's draining my property and my next door neighbor, Joe Perkins' property. So with that, I would like to see that if you all do approve it, that some sort of retaining wall, another swell or something is dug that will catch, because I don't want the water to go up under my basement. And right now, it's near my septic. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Green. All right, that closes public comment. And it's back to council for discussion.
Well, I know I had an opportunity to watch the planning board as well, and I appreciate, Ms. Green, your comments then and now, because I think this is one of those unfortunate scenarios where, there was clearly an error done in the design process. A contractor decided they wanted to skip out on things, and my condolences to the applicant as to that, because it seems as though unless we do this rezoning, one, we're only gonna be exacerbating the problem to the neighbors, because he can't go in and do any fixes until he's given the opportunity to rebuild until he's given a permit so that he can go in and make those fixes. So the neighbor's ultimately gonna get worse. And then if the rezoning doesn't happen, it appears that he's basically gonna have to restart from scratch, tear up the foundation, move the house, and do all that sort of stuff. So this is a really unusual situation. I know that was the comment from the planning board. But I think that in this case, this extreme rezoning of one parcel, and this is only for one parcel, doesn't affect the rest of Iron would probably be the best solution to help out everybody who's being affected by this.
Thank you.
I just had a question about the drainage. Staff, is there anything else you can add to try to help ensure that the drainage issue's taken care of?
Planning's not involved with lot drainage on single-family development. I don't know if Marty may have an answer, maybe.
We can work within the right of way. We can't work on private property. So we could have stormwater look at the issues that's on private property and maybe give them some ideas of what could be done. But town staff in itself cannot work on private property.
But you can collaborate with the neighbors?
We feel like that the correction, because I don't believe the issue was there as much previously before the water line went in and the ditch didn't get graded back correctly. So we feel like correcting that grading issue and the silt fence issue will get it back to what it was prior to us putting the water line in there a year or so ago.
And you anticipate that will help? Mild, moderate? You have a prediction on how much that was gonna help?
No, ma'am, because if you're asking, would that swell still overtop in some storms? Absolutely, but what year storm that would be, I do not know. But we're putting it, basically it would be back to what it was previously. You can look at the grade and contours from Wake County and see that it's supposed to be a ditch line adjacent to that road, and that's what we're placing back.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Yeah, I'll just say, like Councilmember Gray said, certainly an unusual situation. I think maybe I've seen one other rezoning in the past couple of years that was to correct a nonconformance. That's pretty unusual, and certainly I want to hold, to the best of our ability, the property owner harmless here. It's really a big stressful event on his family. I'm just curious, thinking more broadly, how can we hold contractors accountable? Because not only did they, there's an error in the design, what they submitted, but they started building before they got a permit. Right? Like, this is something that was caught at the permitting phase, and if this guy didn't pour, we wouldn't be here today. And it bugs me that, someone can just take off and come back next time, and, what message does that send? That, if you mess up and you're just kind of stop answering the phone, Town of Apex will fix it with a rezoning, and then you're gonna be good. So I'm curious to see, I don't know, maybe it's a rhetorical question. Like, I don't want to set a bad precedent. I want to make sure we find ways to hold people accountable for mistakes and that they conform to our rules and they pull permits when they should and they get permits when they do stuff.
Anything from legal on this one?
I think it's something we would have to look into and get back to you.
Yeah. I would appreciate that. Like, let me know if there's any sort of avenues the town has to pursue contractors who, they're bonded and insured, right? Like, there needs to be some consequences for this type of action, both the error and working without getting the permit. Yeah.
Most definitely.
And if there's a way, whether that means, some sort of fine or other penalty, or is that something that we need to bring up in terms of maybe adjustments to the UDO in order to kind of prevent this from happening in the future? That may be something we need to explore.
All great comments. Any other discussion? Is there, anyone want to proceed with a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Second, Councilman Gray. Other discussion before we go to the vote? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes 4-1. All right, thank you. Okay, we move now to public hearing 3, development ordinance UDO amendments, September 2022, Ms. Amanda Bunce. Thank you.
So we have, I believe, 3 UDO amendments for you tonight, and I'll pause after each one to see if you have questions. The first amendment is to several sections in order to create the use yard waste transfer station and to establish the definition, supplemental standards, land use class, and parking standards for such use. And so the proposed definition is a permanent facility designed to store unprocessed yard waste material for transfer to off-site chipping, mulching, or landfill locations. We are proposing that this use be allowed only in the light industrial zoning district, subject to special use permit approval, which is heard by the Board of Adjustment. For the use standards, we're proposing that the site be used for storage only. No chipping or mulching or other processing activities would be occurring on the site. The storage is limited to 45 days and a maximum height of 15 feet. Those areas shall be effectively screened from view, and the screening designed to ensure that it can't be seen from rights-of-way or adjacent residential zoning districts, and that the storage piles be set back at least 25 feet from any property line or 50 feet from a property line abutting a residential district. Two other standards, an access road for collection vehicles shall be provided, which does not include residential streets, and no parking shall be required for such use. We are proposing that this use be classified as a Class 6 use for buffer purposes. It's our most intense land use classification for perimeter buffers. And again, no vehicular or bicycle parking required. Are there any questions on this amendment?
Kinda. Is someone about to build a yard waste transfer station? Is it us?
It's us.
Okay.
Yes, and we
Yeah.
don't have a use that really fits this, and that doesn't involve processing like chipping and mulching, which is a much more intense use. It's not a landfill, so it did not fit neatly into any use classification that we currently have, and so this is the process in order so that it could be permitted, potentially.
Great. I'll just point out, because if I figured it out, someone else is going to figure it out too. That we're writing rules for ourselves that we're about to do, right? So I will. My reading of this is that these are actually pretty stringent rules. Would you say that, compared to a yard waste transfer station like Holly Springs or something, that the buffering is very thick. It's not like we can't chip or anything like on there.
Right. I mean, we considered, what would be the impact on adjacent uses, and what would what would the town need to be held to, just as if it were a private operation, looking at it no different.
Great, so I'll just make that point. We're writing rules for ourselves, but we're actually writing some pretty strict rules here.
I think the takeaway is that we are beholden to the rules. We're not above them. I think that's the takeaway. And we're writing pretty harsh rules for ourselves, by the way.
Any other questions on that amendment? All right, the next amendment is to update references to Lidar data. This is digital topographic data. The UDO currently references Lidar data that's dated 2013. We just received our most recent data early in 2022, and so changing the references so that it's the most recent data acquired by the town of Apex, and making sure that that language is consistent in the 3 sections of the ordinance where it's referenced. So, fairly straightforward amendment there. Any questions? Okay. And finally, we have a couple, 3 amendments to the sign section. And just to let you know, we are working on substantial updates to the overall sign ordinance in response to several Supreme Court cases that have come through that regulate how signage can be regulated, dealing with the First Amendment, and also with some recent decisions from a state court case that gives us better guidance on what we can do that will help us to write that ordinance so that it's in compliance and doesn't violate First Amendment rules. But for tonight, just a lot simpler changes. So the proposal is to modify the standards for internally illuminated signs within planned development districts and to create a sign type and standards for interior signs located in parking lots. So we'll start with the interior signs. The intent here is to create a sign type for the signs that we're all used to seeing now for the drive-up pickup locations at typically big box stores. To date, we have not had a sign standard dealing with those. They've been erected, and so now we're seeing various types and heights and styles, and so we're proposing a set of standards that any new signs going forward will have to comply with. And so the definition will be a ground sign located adjacent to parking spaces that are reserved as drive-up pickup locations, which meet the conditions below. So allowing a taller and larger sign if it's further away from a public right-of-way, and of course smaller as it's closer. So your bigger box stores where the signs really can't be seen from a public right-of-way can be larger than those that would be closer to the street, such as like a curbside pickup at a restaurant that may be fairly close to the road. And then typical standards that we have for all sign types referring to the sign illumination and sign design color and master sign plan requirements. So another change that we are proposing to make is for, make sure I'm not missing anything here. We'll deal with illuminated signs. So currently, the only reference to the allowance for an internally illuminated sign is in the prohibited sign section. And it says box style signs with internally illuminated backgrounds are prohibited. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But then it says individually illuminated letters are acceptable. Well, you wouldn't expect to find something that's allowed in the prohibited section. So we're proposing to clarify this, that individually illuminated letters and logos are permitted, but also add a clear standard under the installation requirements under sign illumination standards that says internally illuminated signs shall have individually illuminated letters and logos. Such letters shall have opaque sides and the acrylic front shall be flush with the sides instead of held by a lip, and that's just a design standard. So here's some examples. This sign, which would have a lot of illumination from the white background, is currently prohibited, has been for some time, and will continue to be prohibited. Currently, signs such as this Apex Medical sign, only the letters Apex Medical are allowed to be illuminated, but not the banners portion below or the logo, which really doesn't make sense, staff believes. And so it's just some examples around town of what we're talking about, individually illuminated signs. I'll pause just in case there's a question on that.
And this is going forward, so I remember there being conversation about this at planning board, but just so I can be reminded, does how does this affect in terms of those who have previously created signs? Or it's only going to apply to them if they reapply and ask for?
To change their sign, right. If they apply for a change to their sign, then we'll ensure that it's in compliance with the UDO when they submit their sign permit.
Can I ask, I'm generally not a fan of illuminated signs in general because of too much light and it's annoying. And so how is this change going to interact with what we're working on with the lighting ordinances that it may be in progress too, and trying to minimize the kind of glare and excess light that this kind of stuff would cause?
Sure. I mean, generally speaking, I don't believe there's a maximum wattage for illuminated signs, given the fact that the letters are individually lit and not like the box style sign, which has a much larger area that light can come through. It's usually not as much of an issue depending upon the size of the sign and the ambient lighting. So it's all relative to, what is your ambient lighting, to how bright it is. But that is something, as we're also trying to work on our lighting ordinance, that's something else that we could revisit as part of an overhaul to the lighting ordinance standards.
Okay.
But you don't think it would conflict? You're going to try to complement, I'm assuming.
We would look to find ways that would complement each other while still providing a way for businesses, to be, visible to, consumers in the evening for wayfinding and other
What is
purposes.
what is the theory behind kind of pushing people? Like, I have some ideas. But what would you say is the theory behind pushing people towards the individual letters illuminated versus the box style? You mentioned earlier, kind of implied, as more about brightness and wattage, but is also, I kind of think the individual ones look better. Is that part of it too?
There's an aesthetic aspect to it for sure, but there's also potentially a level of lighting or amount of glare, because when you have a box, you potentially, that surrounds all of your text, you potentially have more light that can come through, depending upon the design of the sign. There's a lot of depends, what ifs, but generally speaking, it's aesthetic and addressing the lighting as well.
If we wanted to regulate less about what's illuminated, more about when it's illuminated, would that be appropriate for the sign ordinance, or more about a lighting ordinance later on?
Maybe both. Enforcement is challenging because our enforcement officers aren't working, typically when it's dark. It's something that if there were a complaint, though, that they could arrange to be out after hours to take a light reading, just like if there was parking lot lighting that was changed and it was too bright.
In general, I think that if we go approve this, I know that lighting technology with LED lights, you can get pretty bright lights in a pretty small space. I think thinking about this in that context would be helpful in case somebody wants to put on some kind of really bright signage that would be unpleasant.
We do have operational standards in the UDO as well that address general issues such as glare. And so if there were a sign installed with super bright LED lights and it was really causing an issue, safety for traffic or whatnot, then, Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, the operational standards of the UDO may be able to be used to address that.
We have worked with developers of shopping centers to go back and fix things that operationally didn't work. I don't know legally how much we can do, but certainly it's in the ordinance, and we have been able to work cooperatively with folks in the past.
Okay. Thanks.
My impression was that we had a lot more leeway for lighting and sign regulations for commercial properties versus residential. Right? Is that right?
As far as
No.
sorry.
I was a little bit lower.
As far as the lighting ordinance is concerned?
Yes, as far as lighting and signage. So if someone has like a spotlight in their backyard, that's more difficult for us to regulate versus Apex Medical here or whoever has a sign.
Right. So that's all very good feedback that we can use as we're evaluating both significant changes to our sign ordinance and updating our lighting ordinance to reflect LED technology and so on. And then finally, the last change that's proposed to this section, currently planned development districts fall under the standards that apply for the central business district and the historic district, which we know we have planned development districts all over. And so it's really not staff believe appropriate to be treated the same. And so in addition to some cleanup text to reflect the title of Section 877, we're proposing that plan development districts follow the sign standards that are applicable everywhere else in every other residential and commercial area in town outside of the historic district and central business district. Any questions there? All right. Staff recommends approval. The planning board heard this item earlier this month, and they recommended approval unanimously.
Thank you so much. All right, with that, we'll move to open public hearing for comment. No one signed up to speak tonight, so we'll close public hearing for comment. It's back to council for possible motion to approve. Discussion first. Any discussion before we do that?
Motion approved?
All right.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. If I could have someone to make a motion to go into closed session real quick to consult with an attorney.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Passed unanimously. Move to closed session. in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Passed unanimously. We now move to unfinished business 1 and 2 together, and Liz Lofton will be presenting tonight.
Good evening. This is Annexation 733 and rezoning case 22 CZ08 Adams Property PUD. As you may recall, you heard this item at your August 23rd meeting. To recap the project, it's located in the western part of our jurisdiction. It's on the east side of New Hill Olive Chapel Road, north of Olive Ridge, and west of the retreat at Friendship. It is currently in Wake County's jurisdiction, so you'll be voting on annexation and rezoning. They're proposing plain unit development conditional zoning. It is low density on the land use map. And they are proposing a maximum density of 66 units or 2.8 units per acre. There have been no changes to the rezoning except for 3 additional proposed zoning conditions that were added after the agenda deadline. 3 homes shall have a 7 kilowatt solar PV system. All garages shall be wired with a 22 volt outlet inside the garage. And number 3, prior to the recording of the first subdivision plat for the property, the developer will provide a donation of $5,000 to a local nonprofit organization with a mission towards tree preservation and replacement. So that is a recap. If there's any questions that you may have on this project.
All right, questions?
I had a question that I would probably have asked, but I missed in the last meeting. I'm glad I had a chance to now. So it's unrelated to those new ones, but as I read in the application, there was a $25,000 contribution to a fee in lieu toward the traffic signal. And they were talking about how, in the planning board at least, that it's usually the bigger developments have a requirement to put in traffic signal, but the small ones, oftentimes do not because they don't meet the number to get a traffic study. And if you have a bunch of small ones together, it may not ever get built because they may never contribute anything. So I think it's great that that's a contribution. But have you guys looked at that dollar amount, maybe divided by the number of units that are proposed, to see if that's equitable for some of the other developments that we've had recently that have been required to put in a traffic signal?
I'm gonna let Russell answer.
In short, we have not looked at it from that perspective in terms of the number of units or the cost per unit. In this particular case, where that dollar amount came from was originally we asked about the installation of the signal because we had a concern with the side street delay, which is getting very long. We have a couple other developments committed to adding and lengthening turn lanes at that intersection to help mitigate those impacts. But at some point in the future, that side street delay is going to become so long there's going to need to be a traffic signal there. They originally proposed a 3% cost share because their traffic is contributing 3% of the traffic to the intersection for no build versus build. I felt like that was, that was fairly a low amount based on what would typically cost to put in a traffic signal. And the way I looked at it is they're, based on the TA, they're contributing 12.5% increase to the side street left turn delay, which is typically what would trigger that traffic signal. So I took 12.5% of $200,000, which was estimated cost of design, right-of-way, and construction. So that's how we came up with the $25,000. So it wasn't based on the number of units, it was actually an increase in delay.
And does the TIA of this and other ones, does it account for single family versus townhomes, the number of cars and traffic generated from those different types of units?
Yes, so single family does generate more traffic per unit than townhomes. So as part of their trip generation, they would have that. And it also is important to note that their TA assumed more units than what I understand they're actual to get now in terms of their yield. So that is a little bit, so actually in terms of the money they're contributing, it's actually a little bit better in the town's favor based on that original calculation.
Okay, so it's possible that if this was able to be replicated in some other smaller developments that might occur in the area, eventually there might be enough to get the signal built in the absence of a very large development going in somewhere nearby.
Yeah, it is certainly one way to do it, to to obtain partial contributions where we see there's justification. The reason we had justification for some share of a traffic signal here is because of the amount of delay increased on that minor street movement. But as part of a planned unit development, it's certainly something we can consider in the future for developments that don't trigger a full need for a traffic signal but could contribute.
Is the position of the development being kind of in the middle of an area not on a right-of-way of a major road, how's that contribute to, like, it seems like there's not a lot of, like, sidewalks being built or roads being widened because they're in the middle of everything. So how do you guys look at that compared to ones like the one in the north with the Y, starting the Y name, that has like a very long stretch of road frontage that they having to improve and do the Greenway or whatever, Side Street Greenway. How do you guys kind of evaluate the public good when it's internal versus external, like along a road?
We don't typically do that type of comparison to figure out like what they're contributing, but I would say, in terms of the public good, one thing they're contributing is connectivity between other proposed neighborhoods. So that connectivity is good to provide alternatives to drivers. So to reach their destination, if they're traveling to another neighborhood or to another thoroughfare, they don't necessarily have to travel as many miles on a thoroughfare. These are more local, low-speed trips, safer on residential streets versus the thoroughfares. In fact, the only reason they had to do a TA was because their only access is via residential streets. They're actually below the TA threshold, so if they were located along the thoroughfare, the only requirement would be to study their access, their direct access. They would have no requirements to study, for instance, an off-site intersection for a traffic signal if they're below that threshold.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome.
All right, other discussion? Take silence as ready to move forward.
Is the applicant going to speak? Or?
Yeah, is the applicant going to speak?
Yeah. And good evening, everyone. My name is Neil Ghosh, attorney with the Morningstar Law Group, 700 West Main Street in Durham. First of all, I just want to say thank you to you all for taking the time to meet with us and discuss the project. And after our last public hearing, we've had a lot of conversation with you all and internally. And I think the slide, excuse me, the slide that's up, I think it kind of explains where from the conversations that we've had with you all, with staff and internally, what we felt we could commit to on this project in addition to what has already been committed to. I think the project has been improved as a result, but the project also was, I think, very good to begin with. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We have our team available to answer any questions. And, I think the new commitments just demonstrate, I think MI's commitment to some of Apex's core values in new development, and hopefully you all would agree. Thank you very much for your time.
Any questions for the applicant?
I do have just one question, or actually more of a comment than a question, and I really appreciate the efforts that was made by the applicants, by you and MI Homes and making these changes. And I think a lot of it is kind of summed up in what you said, which is you guys have adopted a lot of our values with regard with what we're trying to move forward in terms of environmental stewardship, and in terms of energy stewardship, in terms of just making Apex a lot better. So I can tell you, I truly appreciate the efforts that you made in making this go forward, and appreciate you recognizing that you're just kind of adopting a lot of our practices when it comes to what makes a great project. So I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate MI Homes' stewardship in terms of kind of helping lead the way on these environmental issues. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Can I, because I wasn't there last time too, can I ask you, so kind of similar to the question I had before about this being kind of an internal neighborhood and not a lot of road frontage, not a lot of sidewalks that will be used by people outside the community, I mean, to a large degree. How do you, what's the argument, would you say, as far as like value to the community when there's not those evident things? And are some of these new conditions kind of potentially related to trying to increase the public good of the neighborhood when there maybe is not, because of its location and road frontage-ness, not evident in that way.
Well, respectfully, I think the questions you're asking are kind of two different items. I think the conditions that are on the slide right here are more representative of just, I think, MI's commitment. I don't think it makes the project any more viable from a connectivity standpoint or anything like that. I think the location and size of this project and its shape present both opportunities and challenges. One of the challenges is that there isn't a lot of opportunity for external connectivity. There are connections obviously being provided through this project at every location where it's possible, to be coordinated with the existing road network. I'm going to try to go back here. All right. The leg out here, if you could see the mouse, I can't tell. All right. So the leg out here is part of the tax parcel. It's not actually part of the development, and there's a condition that would limit our ability to have access via this leg to this part of the subdivision. And that may sound like it's limiting connectivity. In a sense it is. It's also being responsive to these property owners. But what that condition doesn't do is prevent access from ever happening here. So the idea, I think, is that over time, whenever these lots or these parcels do get developed, there would be opportunity for greater connectivity in this region. On this parcel alone, I mean, we're providing the road through here. I think that's pretty evident. And then generally it sets up with a road, coming down here that connects to existing stub road and provides another stub out to this portion. So I think just because of its internal location and size and shape, there are limited opportunities for connectivity, but we're taking all of those opportunities and making sure we're not preventing future access for, greater connectivity in the future when stuff out towards New Hill off Chapel Road gets developed.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I was curious as to how you came up with your monetary amount for the trees, for the tree replacements.
I think the monetary amount, it's difficult to describe it. I'm not going to tell you that there's any specific math that goes with it. We actually did look. MI Homes is the developer and did the rezoning for Heelan, and Heelan had a similar commitment, but that one was based off of some theory. I'll just put it that way. And we looked at that, and that didn't work on this site because a lot of this site, it's clear. A lot of it's cleared, and then a lot of the existing vegetation in these environmentally sensitive areas is being preserved anyway. So the delta between those, based on the same theory that was used in Heelan, it just didn't actually make any sense. It was negative, as in no contribution for this. So we tried to look at it as far as like a tree replacement. I won't tell you that it's exact. I won't tell you that there's a perfect science to it or anything like that. But this project is significantly smaller than Heelan, and significantly smaller than Heelan. And this amount is roughly, I think.
Basically, is that?
Yeah, but not based on the same theory by any stretch. No.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we're back to discussion.
I'll just say that I think this is a great example of how those within the development community can kind of come forward to help meet a lot of our goals. And I will say I'm very appreciative of the hard work that Neil and his group and the guys over at the men and women over at MI Homes that they did in coming up with a lot of these additional changes, because I do think in the end they will help further a lot of our public desires. I mean, environmental stewardship is important. I'm so glad that MI Homes has jumped on board and is continuing their tradition of supporting that and making the extensions with regard to solar and energy, particularly with electronic vehicle and being able to have that sort of charging infrastructure in place. I think it makes a huge difference. I won't be shy to say initially I was I had concerns, but I feel like a lot of those concerns have been alleviated, and I have no problem with supporting this now.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts after watching the video and then today. As the kind of the sidewalk greenway person, I initially saw this as a little disappointing that we had this kind of limited scope as far as external infrastructure that would be used for the public good as far as that goes. But low density that I'm not sure we're going to change because the surrounding area is low density, as well as the fact that the homes are not built yet around it, and so that I think it makes a little bit more sense to have it be something built not against an established neighborhood of 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be eventually, but when the houses are going in right now, I think there's a benefit to that for cohesion and as far as neighbors knowing what they're going to get behind their house. I think I'm gonna be okay with my lack of sidewalks getting put in as far as an external road because of that timing and because of the unlikely to have low density. You mentioned low density in the last meeting, Terry, you did, and how like maybe you get more interesting maybe developments if it's a little bit higher, but I just don't see it happening out here like that. And I'm not sure it's actually a good idea to have it higher density than what we have it as. So I think we're limited in that way to get for what could be on this spot because of that. But the timing, I think, is a big one. Like having these things built right when other neighborhoods are being built around nearby is I think a good thing. And hopefully the whole corner of this area will develop and have that kind of commercial area on the corner of Hume Olive and New Hill. New Olive Chapel will be a great benefit for the community as far as like maybe a couple areas that they can go get groceries, or I'm not sure what it's going to be there. But I think that will facilitate that, having this development here as well. So I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions as added today.
All right, motion to approve.
Second.
All right, second, Councilman Gray.
Mayor, can we clarify that that's both for the annexation and the rezoning?
Yes, it is. Sorry. Thank you for correction.
And second for the rezoning and for the annexation.
I would just like to add to thank the applicant for working with us and the additional conditions you provided. Impressed with the conditions you offered. It's not exactly what I would have written, but I'm satisfied that you've made a good effort to be good stewards of our environment. I appreciate that.
I will say too that, based on our conversations about solar and how, some previous conditions that are made for other developments are a little bit cumbersome when it comes in limiting. So I appreciate the way this was written. So thank you very much for adding these in.
All right, we have a motion and a second. For further discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, new business 3, appointments planning board. And I'll start off, I know it has Town Clerk Alan Coleman, but I will start it off. And I received information from Mr. Coleman. We had 20 applicants for the board appointments. And there was a lot that went into it. I appreciate you doing that. I know you consulted with Chair Skinner as well. And based on the information presented, I would like to move forward with Alyssa Stepuson and Daniel Coder-Paris as the 2 members to fill those vacant spots. I like Mr. Coder-Paris that he brings a balance, and he represents an area that we don't have represented on the planning board. So I'd like to have him there. And then Alyssa Stepuson is one that was recommended by Chair Skinner. So I'd like to proceed with those 2. As far as the board chair, vice chair, consulted again with Chair Skinner, and then after looking at Ms. Sherman, Tina Sherman is who I'm recommending. She has 3 years on the planning board. She's very passionate in what she does with the planning board, and I would like to see her fill that role. I think it expires at the end of this year. So those are my recommendations. and I'll welcome any type of discussion with it at this time. I know we usually put this on consent, and I think there was a recommendation to bring this to the council as far as the agenda, discuss it. So I'd like to have discussion before we move with the vote.
Okay, first, Mayor, I want to say thank you for moving this from, agreeing to us, moving it from consent to discussion, because I do think it's one of those things where, you know, per our charter, mayor makes the nomination, and then ultimately we get the vote as a board, but because of the impact that this board can have on the larger community, I think it was important that we let the public know a little bit more about the process, get a little bit more information about the applicants, get a little bit more of an understanding as to why these appointments are being made and the support behind them. So I think in terms of larger transparency, I think we were a lot more effective in maintaining that transparency at this point in time, and I thank you for your leadership on that. I do think that the those being appointed, Ms. Stepson as well as Mr. Kadesprast, I do think that they add a voice and a perspective to the board that, quite frankly, is needed and will help us make better decisions, and I think a better representation for Apex. So I fully support your recommendations with regard to the appointment on the planning board. And as for the vice chair, I think that Ms. Sherman does provide a voice that is not only necessary, but I think is essential when we start to make some of these decisions. And I think her time and tenure on the board has been very good, and I think she'd be very good in this role as a vice chair. So I support that as well.
Thank you, Councilman.
And I will say too, there were some quite impressive applicants, looking through all the people that have put forward their name as, you know, potential, for potential consideration. So I support your recommendations at this point.
Again, thank you for this discussion, Mayor. And I think there's a lot here. I think that the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is the process that we use here to do appointments. I think it's, as Councilmember Gray said, this is a vital board to the operation of the town. I think this could be our way of helping to drive higher citizen engagement. I think these appointments should be discussed and celebrated when we make them. And I think other bodies, it's I wouldn't say, you know, celebration, you can come here, we do the appointment, we, you know, congratulate you, we can clap. There's all sorts of ways we can do this, to use this as a moment to help drive that engagement. Planning, I mean, we have a lot of boards. Planning board is unique in the impact it has and the statutory authority that's bestowed on it, you know, by the statute and by ordinance. So I do think it's important to have these discussions and let the public see who's there, where they are, where they live, what they do for a living, and, you know, their occupation, how that relates to the planning board. I think it's incumbent on us as a council to sort of enumerate a philosophy for what we want to see on the planning board and the type of positions that we think we should have, and our thought process when making these decisions. We haven't ever really done that. And I think as we grow larger and larger, and the scope of this board, the importance of it proportionally grows, I think that's an important thing to do. So I think really that's the piece that's missing. And there's a timing issue here too. Like, we had discussed a little bit back and forth over the summer about, you know, what this process could look like. We didn't get it in place in time to do this. I wish we had, you know, and I realize this is not ideal to have this discussion, but you can imagine there being rules around it and publishing saying, this is how we're going to do it. This is the process. It's the way it should work. So we'll keep working on that. What else? So that's where I want to go with this. I think this moment specifically is unique because these appointments are new appointments to empty seats. Right. Typically we're talking about a reappointment 9 times out of 10. And I feel if someone's doing a good job, they get reappointed. These moments where we're doing new appointments, they're not as common. They come up occasionally. You know, you're lucky if you get one a year. Usually not, but that's where we are today. So I kind of want to describe my philosophy for what I think the planning board should be, and what I'm thinking of what I'd like to see in applicants and appointments, and then we'll do what we got to do. So I think the planning board should be a body which at most is split half and half between professionals of some type and between laymen, regular citizens who can advocate for and speak from that kind of lens. And I think when we do appointments, we should think a lot about that. And that's one of the appointments that you recommended, Mayor Daniel, I think really speaks to that directly. And in terms of the other seats, I think we should think about the mix of expertise that we have there. What kind of people are there now and what's missing? And the comments I've been making to my colleagues, I'm not sure if we had this conversation, Mayor, is I really think we need an affordable housing voice on the planning board. And when I look at the list of applicants, which is included in our packet now and public can go look, I really only see one applicant, which I think checks that box. I think they would make a great planning board member. That's Casey Angel. So those are my thoughts. But I think we should think about getting someone that can come at it from a affordable housing position. We can think about ways to formalize that in the future. You know, in the code, we have the ability to designate this is the affordable housing seat if we wanted to. Or we can just, as we decide, that, hey, I think we need someone who needs affordable housing stuff. So that's my process, and those are my thoughts today, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I just continue to be impressed with the number of citizens who have interest in serving on our boards. It just underscores, I think, all the talent and compassion and energy that we do have. And so if any residents are listening, I just appreciate that for coming forward and wanting to serve our community. And I appreciate that.
I agree. Thanks.
Motion approved?
All right, motion approved.
Second.
Second, great.
I move to divide the question into 3 different questions for the vice chair appointment and then each individual seat.
So a motion for I move for the approval of the appointment of Ms. Stepson.
So that's your motion?
Second.
So you got the motion for that?
Oh, no, is that the right order, Laurie?
I'm trying to remember, Mr. Mahaffey moved to separate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need to
And
vote on
passed?
that? No, we didn't vote on that yet.
No.
Oh, you made the motion to,
Yeah.
hold on. You proceeded with it, so we need to vote on that thing first, right? It's layered, right?
The town code might say, I
Yeah.
think any council member can just request a question be divided without having to go through the
Okay.
process of voting on it, I believe.
Okay, fine, that's fine.
All right, so your motion,
So my motion is to vote for the appointment of Alyssa Stepson.
all right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second again.
And this is the position where I prefer to nominate and have a vote versus Mr. Angel, because I do support Daniel. So if I'm not trying to do that procedurally to check, I don't know if anyone supports what I said at all. So maybe it's not a big deal.
Okay.
Well, I think that because by the way the charter reads, the mayor gets the motion to appoint, we can vote up and down on the appointment. If we vote down, then the mayor can make another appointment, can make another motion for appointment. That's my interpretation of it, and I know that coming from the town lawyer has oftentimes said that they're gonna remain silent on that issue. In terms of.
I didn't know we had to settle that now.
Say I'd have to pull it up and look at it again, because they go different ways.
Yeah.
But I believe that's correct, that the mayor makes the recommendation and the council appoints.
Okay. So, Mrs. Stepson, we have that one already on the table. So we're voting on this one.
So if we turn this down, then the mayor can make a different appointment? Is that your interpretation of it?
Recommendation, and then the council,
But the council can't appoint directly.
I'm sorry?
But the council, I can't say I want to appoint whoever.
I mean, you could appeal to the mayor.
All right. Well, I guess I'll appeal to the mayor and the colleagues now. I think I think she's a wonderful candidate as well. Of the candidates we're considering, I'd like to put someone with an affordable housing view on there. So I'm going to vote against this nomination and ask that the mayor recommend another individual with affordable housing experience.
Okay. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
3-2. Passes. All right. And then we have a motion for Daniels.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. And then a motion for Ms. Tina Sherman as vice chair.
Motion for that?
All right.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for that. We'll move now to updates. Manager Crosby. Yeah, I know.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Couple updates. One, I just want to let the community know that we are monitoring the hurricane, and please check our website for updates. We do have the Japan Festival that's scheduled for this weekend, and we plan to get updates by 11 p.m. tomorrow on whether or not that's going to move forward, but we are monitoring that, and you can stay tuned on our website. Secondly, residents should be seeing some information soon about our new way to report power outages via text messages. In order for utility customers to be auto-enrolled in the text program, it's important that their contact information is correct in our billing system. So please check the website, social media, or the insert in their most recent utility bill for more information on how to do that. And last but not least, I have one more update. Oh, I know what it was. It escaped me that quickly. We do have our small business meet and greet and informational tomorrow, where we will be updating our local small businesses about things that are happening in the town of Apex. So we do encourage our small business owners to attend that. It's 5:30 tomorrow in the senior center, and I hope to see you all there as well. Those are all my updates. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. That's all the business I have on the agenda. Y'all want to stay a little bit longer? Please adjourn. Thank you.